Welcome to Rucks, Mauls and Oval Balls. That's right, we haven't disappeared, we only took 1 week off. And we're back with some more rugby nonsense. It's me, Dave, talking rugby nonsense, joined as ever by Rory. Rory, say hello to the listener.
Hello, listener. Welcome back, David, from your avalanche of work from the civil service last week. They must have asked you to do 3 things.
Well, if only it was 3 things. It was at least 4. Yes, it's been a very, very busy time for me outside of rugby content podcasting creation. Therefore, it has had to take a little bit of a step back on my priority list, sadly, because unfortunately, Rory, as much as it pains me, this is the part of my life that doesn't pay the bills. Whereas the other half, which is kind of taken priority, is the important bit around that side of things. So yes, I do apologise to any listener. I know we have some keen listeners who are particularly disappointed. Specifically, the creative director. I got a lambasting from the creative director to the show. For that,
you got it from with both barrels, a full shellacking.
A full shellacking from the creative director. So I think I'm on my final written warning from the leadership group behind the scenes. So yeah, I must do better. But unfortunately, life does sometimes get in the way, Rory, and can at times be unavoidable, and is a very large part as to why the Rucks, Mauls, Oval Balls socials have been a little less active in these recent weeks, because it's been a month-long busy period. But December's looking a lot better, so hopefully we can get back into rhythm, back into the swing of things, and get back on it.
And to slightly take the pressure off David on this one, I do next to nothing to help with him with the burden of socials, so or editing or anything of that sort of technical nature. So
yes,
it really does rely on him having the time.
It's a very comfortable 95-5 split in terms of effort put towards the podcast. So, but that's fine, because Rory's 5 is a very important 5.
That last 5% is the big one.
It's the big one. It's what sets us apart from everyone else. But how are you, Rory? Obviously, it's been 2 weeks since we've conversed.
Yeah. Well. Sadly, no Lions games to report on. The last 2 have been cancelled before the fixtures could take place. Unfortunately, other clubs struggling to get teams together, which is a sad state of affairs for Lions rugby in South East Essex. I don't judge. We've been there ourselves. We're in a slightly better position than we have been in for a few years, but we're not completely immune to the roller coaster that is available players. So I sympathise with other clubs, but it has meant that we haven't had a game for a couple of weeks. Should hopefully have one this week against Wanstead, which we will look forward to. So in the meantime, sans games, catching up on watching a bit of rugby.
That's always nice.
Trying to get myself in some nick again to get myself through the Christmas period, because that turkeys are coming.
Turkey is a coming, and it's a very important time for a prop or a forwards kind of physique. It's
the winter bulk.
It's bulking time. So yeah, Wanstead, you better turn up, because Rory needs some cardio in him in order to justify that turkey. And
he sure does.
Well, and also the Lions, they need some game time, because they're ready and raring.
Absolutely. And you, David, has it just been work?
It has been work. Unfortunately, it really hasn't been much more exciting than that. Obviously, I've been able to watch the rugby in between, but it's been a little bit non-stop. I definitely feel like I've got a little bit greyer in November, and it's not just because of the cold weather. But hey, that's the life I've chosen. But if the listeners do want to tell everyone they know, so that podcasts could eventually start paying the bills, hey, I'm all for it.
Yeah, bring a mate.
Yeah,
bring a mate to listen.
Bring a friend.
Yeah,
help a
guy out. Download, subscribe.
Download, subscribe, and I don't know.
Otherwise, David's starting the OnlyFans.
Maybe a Rucks, Mauls, Oval Balls Patreon isn't the worst idea. But maybe that's like for 2029. I don't know. But Rory, we've got a podcast
we sure do. Let's get into it.
To stumble through. We'll start off with a little bit of news. We'll start then rolling through the Prem fixtures that took place this weekend, because it kind of did its little cameo between the Autumn Nations Cup and Champions Cup. So we got a little taster of Prem rugby, and then we'll touch on maybe what happened in the Principality, and the PUR to round off. Does that sound like a plan to you, Rory?
Let's get into it.
Okay, first up, news time. And breaking excellent news, Rory. The R360 is falling apart in front of our eyes. Yay!
Who could have predicted this?
I know, it's so surprising.
Yes. In the interest of accuracy, it has only been delayed by 2 years.
Wow.
So Mike Tyndall says they're very much still planning to go ahead. There's nothing to be worried about. They just felt that their timelines were too tight, which no one pointed out when they first said they wanted to get started next year.
It's the HS2 of rugby.
It's yes, yeah. Without the potential economic improvements.
I'm telling
for anyone
you.
other than Mike Tyndall.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, it's obviously falling apart. It's obviously not happening, and we all saw it coming. And it's some delightful Schadenfreude, I think, for all of us to watch this obvious cash grab run out of steam.
Is it me, or is there quite an obvious move that's being put out here by some of the clubs as well? That every contract I've seen re-signed recently has been until 2029. That feels deliberate that they're announcing that on purpose as well.
Well, I think there's probably a bit of that. I think there's also, we did speak about this a few weeks ago. There are some really positive economic signs coming out of the Prem. The RFU recently announced very, very strong revenue figures. Their second highest ever, only below the 2015 World Cup, which obviously England hosted.
Yeah,
so you'd expect that. Yeah, so that you'd expect that to be your record year, but this actually wasn't too far off that.
Wow.
Despite no men's World Cup, obviously the women's World Cup, which would play a part, but it won't have actually made huge revenues in comparison. Just the ticket pricings weren't the same. But obviously, it's an important part of it. But
Rory has just had his doorbell go or an alarm go, so he's had to stop mid-story. This is interesting. This is Rory's turn to have something delivered to his front door. I wonder what it is. I really, really hope it's a box of some sort of caviar or...
No, it's the neighbour just pressing the wrong button on his way in.
Oh, that's a bit less exciting. Carry on. You were at but.
Yes, but I think the key point is that I think clubs are feeling more confident signing players for longer terms. I think there's reports of 3 clubs breaking even this season, which based on the most recent revenues that we've seen, I would assume would be Gloucester, Northampton, Leicester, but who knows?
Yeah, I saw. So Northampton did release theirs. I think there was a small loss, but it was down to basically due to asset depreciation. Like they're sitting on quite good cash reserve, like all that stuff, like the stuff that you actually need to focus on financially, have gone up. But like the headline figure that probably Mike Tyndall and James Haskell will point out is that it's still counting as a loss, but it's because of stuff that you have to do accounting wise. It's not actually bad business.
Yeah, so I think that was at the end of last season, right, when most revenue figures were previously released. Is the trend looks like at least 3 will break even over the course of this season, which is great news. Obviously,
30% of the league doesn't lose money.
But
hey, that's good news. That is good news of where we have been.
And there's other good news. London Irish. Back in the agenda. They're making noise on social media. They're looking to relaunch next year.
Yeah, very interestingly quiet about the competition. I'm finding that quite interesting where they're going.
Yeah, it feels like a power play from somewhere. My assumption is they'll be in the Championship, but that's obviously not been totally confirmed yet.
Yeah.
So all that being said, I think there's a bit more confidence about where the game in England certainly is going, and therefore clubs are feeling happy to sign players on longer terms.
Absolutely. So unfortunately, R360, as predicted, more or less dead in the water as far as I'm concerned. But I'm sure we'll hear about it again in a couple of years' time. They'll probably go lick their wounds, come back maybe with a different name, and try again.
Well, the big rumor is that the financiers behind it have been scared. They've been frightened off by it. So it may come back in 2 years' time. They may be able to secure new sponsors, but
well, and it's post World
I
Cup,
wouldn't.
so you get some of like the mid 30-year-olds who've had their final World Cup and now they go for their final kind of big contract. Maybe that's the thinking, but
That's not the competition they've built. Is
No,
a dad's army of
yeah, that's not a
of
successful model.
ex-internationals.
It's not a
No.
successful model.
So-
So we'll see. On a similar positive line around Prem Rugby's financial kind of fortunes, are we starting to see a little bit of the Newcastle Red Bulls flexing their muscles with the reported signing of Hoskins Tutu, which reportedly snapped right under the noses of Saracens and Sale, I think it was. He was also being linked with basically every other club at the same time, so obviously well sought after.
Yes, Gloucester were rumoured to be in. I think it's interesting news. I think it's interesting to see that first big marquee signing for the Red Bulls. I think that's an important one. Sale have an ongoing issue with their recruitment.
Yes.
He's been pretty honest about it, and they're reviewing what they're doing.
Yeah.
But he's also been pretty honest about and calling out specific players, namely Cunningham South, for asking for piss-taking wages.
It makes you wonder what Harlequins have started paying him.
Well, yeah, it does. But it also would suggest that maybe them publicising that they've got the budget for 4 or 5 world-class players wasn't the best tactical move.
Yeah, who'd have thought it?
Yeah.
So that's a hurdle that Newcastle are going to have to face as well, I imagine, because anyone who gets approached by them, they're going to know that they've got the money, and they're going to know they're going to be pretty determined to get the people they want to sign.
Well, if I were at the Red Bulls and part of this negotiating team, and I was stressed before I go through this analogy, I have next to no insight or knowledge of how this is done, right? But this is from a pure rank amateur perspective.
It's a very important caveat.
Yeah. What I would be saying to these players is, from a wage perspective and from a package, we will not go beyond fair market value based on the data and available budgets.
Yeah.
We're not, if I were Newcastle, I would absolutely avoid setting any kind of precedent of overpaying players just because they're Red Bulls. However, I would be presenting a package that included tantalising support from the Red Bull marketing team on things like image rights and brand deals and self-publicising. The stuff that Red Bulls have been brought. Well, one of the reasons why people are so excited about Red Bulls being involved in rugby and what they can do support, I would be very much pushing that aspect as to what they can do as part of your overall marketing strategy as an individual player.
Yeah, it's the intangibles of being associated with that monster brand. Oh wait, not monster, Red Bull brand. It's interesting. I'm intrigued to see what happens with the rest of the season. There was talk on the Friday night game, which was the Red Bulls game, around this, saying after the 1st of January they can start kind of approaching players out of contract. They put a long list of out of contract players on the screen. A lot of them, I have a feeling, they're not going to be what they're going to be after, because they gave them a huge list of like some 30-somethings who are out of contract, big names. But I think they would want to target like the mid-20s, young 20-year-olds, the ones that are still growing. But it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well, I think what they'll be trying to define over the next few months, is what type of team they want to be. So they just brought in Stephen Jones as attack coach, which is a really interesting signing, right? He has got some really positive references from his time at Moana Pacifica, where he's just been, and for his other work he's done in other environments since he's retired. He's a very highly rated, relatively young coach. If they start making these kind of backroom moves and start defining very quickly what type of ambition they have in terms of the type of team to watch, the type of rugby they want to play, and make the according signings, someone like Hoskins Tutu, I've not seen masses of him playing in Super Rugby, but I've seen a little bit. That's not a player you bring in if your goal is to play classic Leicester Tigers 9-man rugby. No. That's a player you bring in because you're wanting to play a very attractive brand. So I would be targeting players that can support that ambition. You know, I was a little surprised they didn't. Maybe they didn't go in stronger for Joe Marchant. Feels like the sort of player that they would be targeting. You know, good age profile, very marketable, England international, etc., etc., etc.
He has landed at the other club with deep pockets as well. To be fair, so
correct.
He
And there's going to be a bit of a tug of war for rugby in the north going on, which is going to be interesting to see it played out.
Very interesting.
Those are the sort of players I would expect, and maybe the age profile will be part of that long-term ambition. But also, I think possibly it's just going to be about a stylistic choice as much as anything. You know, would they sign Courtney Laws, who's being rumoured to be coming back to England? Possibly, but
leave him alone.
Wouldn't necessarily. I don't think it necessarily fits with what you want to do, other than maybe having just a big marquee name. But I would think that there are some very exciting Argentinian players.
Yeah,
I would be targeting some very exciting Italian players potentially. You know, certainly some strong players from Australia and South Africa. You would target, particularly now Australia are looking much more open to overseas selections. So.
Well, I think the interesting thing is they will want to build a really strong squad, but obviously there is a requirement there to have. I believe there's still a requirement there to have a certain number of EQP players.
There is.
I think it's 15 out of the 23 of a match day squad.
Which is what they've talked massively about their academy and their links to local universities.
So, like, they can fill their squad with all these players, but they are going to have to figure out how they bring in some of the better English players as well and lure them up north. It'll be interesting. It's going to be interesting time. Yeah. One we'll be watching with a keen eye. Moving on to our final bit of news. News for free-to-air fans of TV, that England internationals are making their way back to ITV after a monster £80 million bid, stealing them under the noses of TNT Sports. Free-to-air fans will be rejoicing at this, Rory.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think TNT did pretty well.
Well, it's the Prem rugby team, isn't it? It's a good, solid rugby team.
It's a good, solid rugby team who did a good job. But it does now mean that effectively all international rugby will be on free-to-air television next year.
Which is great.
Now, it's absolutely great, assuming that ITV execute on it. Because with the best will in the world, the last big ITV event, the World Cup, the production for that was crap.
Yeah. Well, they already have all the England home Six Nations games, don't they?
Yeah.
But so yeah, it's not the best.
For me, they need to be getting boots on the ground at stadiums. They cannot keep going with this remote studio. They got to change up the lineup. Get rid of Clive Woodward. Probably get rid of Johnny Wilkinson. It may sound sacrilegious, but I don't want to hear any more about his relationship with the ball when he's drop kicking. I'd like to hear more about how you actually drop kick. If anyone's seen that clip, it's remarkable in how little information he imparts in 5 minutes of explaining drop kicks. I would do a complete revamp. If they're going to invest this kind of money, revamp the whole team.
Yeah.
Probably try and get as many of the TNT guys over if you can.
Well, I could think of 2 podcast hosts that would be interested, but
absolutely. Yeah, Squidge would be right on that.
For the listener, I'm staring at the camera, shaking my head. I wasn't referring to them. But yeah, should we talk some rugby, Rory?
Go on, let's get into it. Prem Rugby returned, and it returned Friday night with 2 fixtures on a Friday night, actually. But let's start off with the Newcastle Red Bulls, because we've spoken about them a fair bit already, up against the Leicester Tigers. Now, I watched this one quite closely, and I was interested to see how this one would go, because obviously Newcastle weren't heavily impacted by international call-ups over the autumn period. They'd had a hot and cold Prem Cup run during this time. I was intrigued how they'd go faring up against the Tigers, who would have had a bit more disruption. Would it be fair to say strong signs of improvement performance-wise?
From my perspective, as someone watching this game, and I was watching this with my partner, who would admittedly say not the biggest rugby fan, but she said, I think if I was to take it word for word, like, I've not been watching this that closely, but every time I've looked up, it looks like that Newcastle team had been the better team. And I was like, you're not wrong, because they had most of the ball. They were playing most of the rugby. The only difference was every time Leicester got into the 22, they scored. And they were very, very clinical, which is kind of what their brand has been this season.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, that ruthless edge is still eluded Newcastle, and to be honest, that's going to be the thing that these signings hopefully bring them, right? Because there's been a few games when you can question their endeavour and their efforts. In some games, I think we've watched a few games where we've thought actually that's just quite poor. But by and large, you can guarantee that they do get stuck into matches. But that being said, effort's not necessarily always enough in this league. And other teams will bring effort. The Tigers team do bring effort.
Oh, for sure. So when I was saying that, I wouldn't say Leicester were bad. It's just I think Newcastle were better than the scoreline suggested. And I would also say with the Newcastle back row they put out, which was Lockwood, Tom Christie's first game in the Prem, and Maffey, there's something there for them to build around because each one of them were impressive in their own way. And you know what you get with Maffey? Lockwood looked really good in the six shirt, I thought, and Christie just was tackling everything that moved. I think he maybe got a little bit of a eye-opening experience at the breakdown because it wasn't easy to get any steals. You could see that he was really struggling to kind of time that right, maybe with the Prem's cadence with referees. Like there's going to be differences to that and kind of what he's used to.
Yeah, it's not Super Rugby, is it?
It's not Super Rugby, so that'll take some getting used to. But I can see he will become an absolute pest once he figures that out.
Yeah,
Oscar Usher again continues to impress me.
He's definitely one I'm really keen to watch how he develops over the next couple of years because you can tell he's not filled out.
Yeah, I think he's got to be on that list of names that they're like, okay, we need to build around him an academy product. Really useful having someone like that in the engine room, and I think he's got still plenty of room to grow. But you can just see he's got that mentality where he just wants to fight for the extra yard, bit of a tackles hard. Brilliant. Like it's what you want for a Northern rugby team, basically.
I can totally see that. Interesting. Tom Christie did an interview recently where he said getting Newcastle back to up to the top of the Prem would be a bigger achievement than the All Blacks cap, which is obviously just good.
Good PR.
Good PR management from his point, but it's an interesting sentiment for a player like that, and actually, I think that's something that that's an attitude they'll be looking to build on, right? That's what they'll be looking for from players they bring in. Obviously, their Cruz coming back in at 9. I think he played in the second half, didn't he?
Yes, and he made a marked difference as well.
That's those bits where they do have extra quality. They've really got to capitalise on them.
Yeah. One thing I will say about the game in general was it wasn't the best of games. There was way too many wayward box kicks from both teams. I think both Tom Whiteley and Sam Stewart kicking the ball away far too much. It almost felt like there's been... It's not this game specifically. I'll mention it a few other games. That there's almost been like a bit of a determination to really make the aerial game a real fundamental part of each team's game plan, and they all seem to lean on it way too much, from my opinion, in all these games. Because the number of kicks in these games was huge, and it's not just this game; it is others, but this game in particular, it felt like there was a lot of kick chase.
Yeah, well, I think every team would like to think they try and take a very innovative approach to how they play the game, or a very independent approach to how they play the game. But by and large, most teams, like the vast majority of teams in every country at every level, rugby international, follow trends rather than set them. Very few countries really set the trends. Yeah. And at the moment, the trend is the aerial battle. Yeah. That being where the competition is. So everyone's probably trying to do it at the moment, and actually maybe the team that either executes best will win, or maybe it'll be the team that balances slightly away from the aerial battle and exploits a passing game, which maybe a team like Bristol would be more likely to do. But even they pre-kicked more than they normally would. But we'll talk about that later. But I think let's be frank, teams are following a trend that they've seen over the autumn internationals, and Tigers were without their first choice 9 and first choice 10 in this game. Maybe that's just going to lead you to a poorer kicking battle because you haven't got the same quality of players executing.
Yeah, and I think that's what we didn't see the best of the likes of Radwan. I'd really hoped he was going to get a moment because he looked really up for the game in the first opening minutes. He seemed like he was really trying to make a point. He just didn't get the ball. I think he had like one moment where he was able to gas. I think it was Benitez Cruz. But that was it for him. Hassel Collins had a couple of nice runs, but the ball rarely got in their hands. Again, that may be down to it being like their second choice scrum half, but I thought Billy Searle had a good game. I thought, and I think the criminal thing with Prem Rugby's TV at this moment was the fact that they didn't give a name check to Joaquin Morrow to be player of the match. Where for me, he was a standout by a long way. Him and Tommy Raffel were incredible.
Yeah, he looks a really, really interesting prospect because he's quite under the radar kind of signing from the Argentinian leagues, I think, wasn't he? And he's a young lad.
Yeah.
A part of a good cohort of young Argentinian players dotted around the league. Elizalde, the Grondonas, the two props down at Quins.
Yeah.
There's some interesting players knocking about. Morrow looks the latest in a long line of extremely good Argentinian back rowers.
Yeah, absolutely. He was one of those players. He picked the line and timed it perfectly, and he hit the line at full acceleration, and that's how he got both his tries. Basically, is just running really smart lines off tackles, and it's the sort of thing that you used to see off like the likes of Chris Ashton coming off the wing. If you've got a number 8 who's able to do that, and he's got a bit of wheels to him as well, you're onto one. Like the only question mark with him would be how he does in the tight stuff, but. With the Leicester pack, he's got plenty of people that can kind of lift that weight a little bit. You can't expect him to be a like-for-like replacement for, say, Jasper Wiese, but he certainly has something a bit special about himself that you can kind of think, okay, he's not an absolute bulldozer, but he may be a bit of a Lamborghini. So
the question is whether Parling and Leicester as an institution would pick him over, say, a more sensible, solid option like Cracknell. Exactly. And that's the difficulty as a more flair-like player at Tigers is whether you'll be given the license to actually play or even get on the pitch in the first place. So that remains to be seen. But he looks like a player to the manner born, from my eyes.
Absolutely. But ultimately, like the game did end kind of inevitably with a Leicester Tigers win. But like I said, I do think Newcastle were much better than the score suggested.
Yeah.
It's still that question mark of will Newcastle, although I say they're looking better, will they find that inevitable win? I don't know, because I think, and I'll touch on it in other games, I think this may have been a golden opportunity to pounce when they've had their squad together all month, being able to work and aim towards this fixture, whereas Leicester will have been disrupted quite a bit through international call-ups.
Yeah.
So I think that may account for Leicester maybe not looking quite on song as they would normally. But they were still able to do enough to beat this Newcastle team. I just worry whether Newcastle will get that elusive win. But that's for Mr. Dickens to figure out. They don't seem to be worried up there. Or Mr. Townsend, of course. Yes, they don't seem to be overly worried. I think they seem to be quite realistic. It's like what Tom Christie was saying. Like, I think he is realistic about what he is coming into, and that they aren't going to be winning from day one.
I think you have to approach it with your eyes open at this point, don't you? There's lofty ambitions, but they are where they are for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else from you, Rory, on the Newcastle Leicester game?
No, I think the only other thing to highlight from it is that Freddie Stewart is continuing some really excellent form at the moment, and
he did drop an absolute dolly in the first half, which was a little bit criminal, I would say.
Well, you catch everything in Newcastle in that windswept wild land.
I don't. It's just. I did find it a bit funny that the commentators, which I think was Austin Healy, and Ben Kay, were raving about Freddie Stewart's performance. Like, it was a good performance, but I didn't think it was his best performance. I didn't think it was warranting the player of the match that he got. There did seem to be.
I think it's his consistency, though.
Perhaps,
it's broad consistency, and also, talk about that ruthless edge. Freddie Stewart is one of the most ruthless finishers in the league because he's got that size and he picks a good line. And he's got, once he's up to speed, he is quick. He's not just accelerate.
Oh yeah, we've said before that he does come across as someone who's really worked on that speed, and I think we can see that. And like I said, I'm not denying he had a good game. I'm not denying that at all. It's just I did find it a little bit frustrating that for me there was a glaringly obvious player of the match who was head and shoulders of everyone else, and they just seem so hell-bent on giving it to Freddie Stewart because, he's a Leicester product, maybe, Austin Healy, Ben Kay are Leicester boys. They want to back the English Leicester boys, don't they? I was like, come on, let's reward people for actually having really, really good games rather than the household England player names just because,
And this is how you lose TV rights, TNT.
Yeah, ITV wouldn't do that. ITV wouldn't make that mistake, I'm sure. But before I get cancelled by ITV or TNT or whatever, the game ended 39-17 to Leicester. Bonus point win for Leicester away from home. Can't ask for more than that. But like I said, I think Newcastle were better for what that score shows. The other game that was taking place on Friday night, the Sale Sharks versus the Exeter Chiefs. And something we've kind of been pointing towards over the last few rounds is, are Exeter good now?
Well, it was a weird game, I thought. It was a lot of penalties exchanged for a long time in the first half. So I think it was 9-6 at one point. Not huge amounts of quality in the game.
No.
George Ford sort of pulling the strings as he is wont to do. Chiefs discipline pretty poor, but then Sharks kind of not really taking advantage of territory, coughing up the ball and coughing up territory, and then ultimately coughing up points. Tom Curry just bullying Josh Hodge, bullying him. Shameful.
Yeah, how
treating him like an Argentinian coach.
Such a bully, that Tom Curry.
I know.
It's such a shame we weren't able to talk about that last week.
Yeah, it was a very measured discourse that I saw around it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Sharks were pretty profligate, and actually for the whole game were. Despite they did score a couple of really nice tries. So Luke James' try
that was nice.
About 25 minutes, class line, an absolutely class running line off Rob Dupree. Absolutely carved through them, and they had a couple of good moments throughout the first half. Scored the second one quite early on in the second half. Alex Wills, not a player I'm hugely familiar with.
So
one I'm sure that you've seen.
Yeah, so he's one of the under-20s from season before last. So kind of in the group of under-20s where it was all kind of about Henry Pollock. But he was one I'd spoke about quite a few times because he is really good under the high ball. He's got a good size to him.
Tall lad, big lad.
And he's got a bit of pace to him. So I think he fits the mould of what the modern-day winger is now. And I think he showed
quite
that.
Quite similar to Roebuck, to my eyes.
Yeah, ideal to have him to step in when Roebuck's not available.
Yeah, and at that point, Sale are kind of cruising without having played very well. It was 26-6 at that point. And Chiefs coughing up a lot of players. The Chiefs were stronger at the scrum. They'd already seen off Ashraf Fajor. He got injured in the first scrum in the first minute.
Yeah.
And the lad who came on, Harper, struggled quite a bit. But yeah, it was a game of very low quality, barring a couple of nice moments up to that point. I was going
to say, it was quite a poor game, I thought.
Yeah. And then for the last half hour, Chiefs really turned it on. They had to a certain extent softened up Sale a bit by that point, just from a bit of size. But actually, once Jack Yeandle and Scotty Seo came on, with about half hour to go, the game really changed. So Yeandle obviously getting that first try, just doing what Jack Yeandle does, fundamentals really well, powering over from close range, just taking the opportunity as he sees it in front of him. And then Woodburn scores about 6-7 minutes later to Daf Jenkins collects a bouncing.
What a game he had, by the way.
Yeah, really impressive from Daf Jenkins, who I think is getting back to the kind of form that saw him named as such a promising lock in his early career. He's getting back to that form. Probably helped by being next to the young lad in Zamboni, who's got real quality. So Jenkins makes the break, kind of misses the opportunity to put Woodburn in originally. And then off the next phase gets a pop off Charlie Chapman, who then pops it off to Woodburn to finish in the corner. So nice little finish. And then George Ford gets subbed off that. And that felt like a big error.
Wrong choice made there, I felt.
I thought so, because Sale never recovered control of the game after that. And when you're losing control, you have to turn to George Ford.
Yeah.
They took off Gus War and George Ford, and that's your two most controlling elements in that sales squad. As much as I like Rafi Quirk, and I think Marislow's got some real potential in that centre shirt, and Rob Dupree is a very good 10 in his own right. I think that was an error from their point of view to make this. I wonder if they were pre-planned. You don't know, but
well, it felt like it cemented the momentum swing over to Exeter, and I felt after that, I think what they did was they quite smartly they just kind of bullied O'Flaherty with Woodburn in the air. The amount of box kicks they just pinged on O'Flaherty with Woodburn, who is probably a solid foot taller than him, it just felt almost unfair, and it just kind of felt like a bit like an inevitable wave. And then that final few minutes where Exeter just had to close it out, and it was just inevitable. Like Sale just did not have an answer to the Exeter pack. You could see Tom Curry was trying to figure out a way to penetrate that and get through to him. It was just a done deal. I think Exeter executed the perfect arm wrestle recovery, and maybe it is with their own version of the bomb squad, like you say, bringing Yeandle and Scott Seo off the bench. That did kind of seem to be the impetus.
I think that made the
And Chumbanti had a great game as well.
Yeah, he did. And actually, Chiefs scrum seems to have really turned a corner from last year, where it was really poor. Where I think their theory of picking massive front rowers has obviously been boosted by Joseph Dweber, who's another massive front rower.
Yeah.
But it seems to be making some actual inroads now. Their scrum was much better than Southern. It's not a weak Sale scrum. Simon McIntyre, Luke Cowan-Dickey, Ashraf Pokavajor. That's a very good Prem level scrum. And he's kind of had them on toast most of the game.
Well, you see the signs of that is that they were not willing to take Simon McIntyre off to bring on the young Onasanya, because they knew he would be absolutely demolished, and that's no good for a young prop's development.
Yeah, absolutely. They're missing Bevan Rod. Yeah. That's obvious. But I think we have to talk about the fact that Sale have only got 2 wins in 6.
Massively underperforming, Rory.
Hugely underperforming at this point. And I know they've got injuries, but with the best one in the world, it's hard to have that much sympathy for any club with injuries, given the injury crisis that's gone across the league. Realistically, lots of us have injuries.
Yeah,
Sale is a wealthy team that's made a lot of good signings, and actually just really underperforming at the moment.
So I don't want to sound like I'm setting up an excuse for a fixture we might be talking about in a little while, but do you think the teams who have England fly halves are specifically disadvantaged in these international window Prem games that are squeezed in because they've been away from their club? Their backlines have been playing without them. They've had to then step in. A team like Sale playing Exeter, who haven't again lost many players to autumn internationals, been able to focus on this fixture for 4 weeks. I think you can see that maybe there is some sort of pattern here, that the clubs that give away the most influential players to their national teams struggle in these fixtures when they come back from the Autumn Nations period. And there's no reason I'm drawing attention to that at all, Rory.
No. I mean, look, it's an interesting point. No one could have foreseen you setting up this kind of
George Ford, Marcus Smith, Finn Smith, all on the receiving ends of losses.
Well, my counter to that would be, David, is the reason these fly halves are elected by international teams is because of their quality and their ability to form in these kind of situations and pull these backlines together. Actually, George Ford, by and large, did a pretty good job of putting the strings on this one. It's actually really the players around him that let him down on this one. And I know this sounds like it's me just staying on the George Ford hype train, and that's because I am.
Bit like that. Yeah, it does sound a bit like that.
But there was a lot of inexplicable ball losses from the Sharks team that didn't have much to do with George Ford, by and large. I don't have much sympathy with that excuse, if I'm honest, David.
Well, you wouldn't as a Gloucester fan, would you? Let's face it.
Well, I think you'll find that we have a lot of Welsh internationals, and if you can find a higher level of quality than that, then I'd like to hear it. The reality is, yes, to maybe the odd fixture, there's a slight advantage. This week, you could maybe make that case that there's an advantage to teams that had less international players.
The only reason I draw focus to it is because I think each of those teams were playing, maybe barring Quins Gloucester, they were playing opponents where there was very little disruption. So I just wonder if it just emphasised slight disadvantage, because Bristol didn't have a lot of disadvantage. I don't want to get drawn into the Saints game too early, but it's going to be basically my point later on. Bristol weren't very disadvantaged by the Autumn Nations. Exeter weren't overly disadvantaged by the Autumn Nations. Quins, you look at the team, not so much. That's my thinking.
Just to slightly challenge that, David. So in that Exeter Chiefs lineup, Josh Hodge, England A. Feo Boso, England national team. Henry Slade, England national team. Leo Nikitel, Australian national team. Daf Jenkins, Welsh national team. Zamboni, Italian national team. Tom Hooper, Australian national team. Ethan Roots, England A. Greg Fisselau, England A. So of that starting lineup, 8 were away. 9, were away in some form of international environment.
And then once they all got subbed off, that's when Exeter started winning.
Well,
basically, Rory, it's my main point for the Bristol game, because most of them didn't go anywhere, and that's why they smashed us. All right.
Yeah, well, we might have to go through those squads again as well, because there's some other issues with the Bristol squad that you're not really taking into account.
Not at all. But let's not get distracted. So Sharks versus Chiefs. Well done, Exeter. You look like you're onto something this season. Austin Healy seemed absolutely adamant that you're going to be in the top 4. Form, hard to argue with it.
Yeah, we'll see where it is at the end of the season, but it's definitely a possibility. But that's not something I would be betting on immediately.
All I say is that we were calling it from the start of the season that the Exeter Chiefs were going to be better this year than they were last year, and I think we've been once again been proven correct, which is nothing less than what we deserve, Rory, as being the oracles of rugby.
We're nothing if not a prophetic pod.
Exactly, pathetic and honest.
We're prophetic and honest. We make predictions that we don't lie.
Yeah. But this game ended 26-27 to Exeter Chiefs. So, well done. Exeter. Next game, Rory. And I'm sure you're keen to talk about, and let's try and keep our eye on the clock. Gloucester versus Harlequins. And about time Rory can finally talk on the podcast in this season with a bit of positivity and optimism.
Yes. Yeah, it's coming home. First win of the Prem season for Gloucester. A game of two. Okay, I'll be slightly honest. A game of two quite low quality teams, if I'm being completely brutal about it.
Agreed. Again, a lot of kicking in this game.
A lot of kicking in this game, and actually, to be fair,
mostly from Harlequins,
and also kicking from Gloucester that I'm not that unhappy with, because it's a slight shift away from the somewhat daft approach we've taken at points this season, where we've been running into brick walls in our own half and losing the ball and giving away possession.
Yeah,
I'm okay with us taking a slightly more conservative approach at the moment, particularly whilst we're in this kind of
little bit of a
funk. Yeah, correct. But to be fair as well, some real quality showings from some players on the Gloucester team. I thought Ben Redshaw, his first start for Gloucester at fullback,
really good.
Absolutely highlighting why he's such a highly rated young talent. His try in particular, just his first try in particular, a phenomenal finish. If everyone's not seen it, he gasses Cunningham South and runs through, I think, 4 or 5 defenders to score under the sticks. A really good finish, and exciting for us to have someone at fullback again who can do something on those lines, obviously having lost Santi over the summer. Will Joseph continuing some frighteningly good early season form. He is dangerous and he is electric. Really enjoying him at the club, and he's been getting around some of the publications, getting some column inches. Feels like a player that's re-establishing himself as a proper young talent. So definitely one to keep an eye on, because the way he's playing is certainly comparable with some other very well-rated talents in England centres.
Well, should we pause on that? Right, I just want to say the England centre depth has all of a sudden gone mental. Will Joseph is being part of that. So I am all for that. And Gloucester, particularly, being the home of Atkinson and Joseph. Well done, Rory. You've got a club with
Yes.
a solid,
Yeah. So
brilliant.
Seb Atkinson back from injury, and again, really good performance. Actually, having him back, taking a bit of the pressure off Ross Byrne with his playmaking abilities and just his physical size, just being able to carry through traffic, just seemed to ease a bit of pressure off Ross Byrne, who probably had his best performance, which wasn't brilliant. It's still not great. I'm still not thrilled about the way he's performing, and if I'm being completely honest, I'd like to see Charlie Atkinson or George Barton given that shirt for a bit, because I don't think we're getting money, value for money out of Ross Byrne at the moment. But
I'd agree on that one. I think he's probably been the more underwhelming signing we've seen.
But it was an improvement.
Fair.
It did, a very nice 20-yard left-handed pass for Brendan Redshaw's second try.
Yeah,
for example.
very true. So he's still
showing
got
some signs of quality, and he does kick his goals by and large. So, I'm okay with. I'm okay with this week's performance at least, but not convinced long term.
Yeah, he is a 70% kicker, so not kicking that many goals, but I'm going to keep quiet about that one because I know.
Yeah, okay, all right. Let's hit me with stats, why don't you? And then in the pack, Will Trenholm, probably quite a low key signing over the summer from Quins. Hugely impressive,
great,
genuinely brilliant performance. He's didn't get much opportunity at Quins, but I think had a couple of Prem appearances. He had some time with the England Sevens set up, but sort of came out of nowhere over the Prem Rugby Cup, which you never really know what kind of marker that is going to be for a fringe player as to whether that actually means they're going to be able to kick on into the Prem season. But in this game in particular, he was superb, carrying through traffic, very mobile, very physical in defence, absolutely slotted Caden Murley at one point, which led to Seb Blake's superb 50-22. If you haven't seen that, it's phenomenal.
This weekend, there's been some lovely front row kicking.
There's been some lovely bits and pieces from front rowers. Possibly Seb Blake, maybe the best of the lot, but who am I to say that? Still, there's still massive problems with Gloucester's, right? The line out is still abysmal. I don't know what's going on there. It's still really, really poor. We still look very vulnerable defending in our red zone. The two Quins tries were pretty easy for them to take. They basically had two opportunities and took two tries out of it.
Yeah.
So we were definitely guilty of not taking advantage of some of our early possession and territory and giving up the lead. But if we're being honest, in terms of which team should feel more guilty about their performance, it's not Gloucester on this occasion for once.
No.
Quins,
not a good performance from them, I'd say. Considering there was lots of positive noise going in because they had a number of key future players re-sign new contracts. I think Cunningham South, Oscar Beard, Ben Waghorn. Yeah. So lots of positive noise going into it, making you think, the squad's in a good place. There are still some underlying problems that I cannot put my finger on as to why it's not working.
I can't. But I can't really see what it is.
So I've got a theory. I've got a specific theory around Cunningham South. I think he's in a sticky situation because what makes him such a great player is his abrasive carrying and kind of a physicality that is unrelenting. When Alex Dombrandt is on the pitch in an 8 shirt, Cunningham South's not asked to do any of that heavy lifting, heavy carrying, doing the running back from kickoffs, doing the picking and going from the back of scrums. So you don't get to see that from him. And when he's in the 6 shirt, he's kind of left to do the unseen work, so you don't see the best of him. I just feel like that may be replicated with other. I just feel like they're not getting the best out of the players they've got, and I don't know why they aren't figuring out a way to bring out the best of them. And they seem so. I was going to go on to another player. Carry on.
Well, I think you've stumbled across the crux of the point here, which is the selection seems weird. Cunningham South's a really good example of that, right? Now, I'm not saying that you should necessarily not pick Alex Dombrandt to start. I understand I think he's the club captain this year. He's obviously a stalwart player for that Quinn side. But Cunningham South is marquee signing that you've just re-signed and you're not utilising him in the game. There's definitely something wrong there. You pick Jared Evans at 12, who is a pivot 10. if we're being, he's not a running threat 10. He's not a physical 10. He's a pivot 10. He's a very good pivot 10. I'm not taking anything away from what he does as a fly half, but he's not a dynamic running threat like the same way Marcus Smith is. He's not a physical threat like Finn Smith is.
Yeah.
Putting him at 12, I don't understand that when you have Northmore on the bench, and you could have started Northmore and Beard, which is a much more potent centre partnership than Evans and Beard. Because Beard was good, and they took Beard off for Northmore. And I just don't understand that. When Northmore was perfectly capable of playing 12, and you've suddenly got two very physical, fast, exciting centres there that you can pick. I don't understand that selection. I don't understand starting Lamasatelli. I'm sorry, he's just not good enough. Not good enough.
Yeah.
Last 20 minutes, he's not fit enough. He doesn't offer enough around the pitch. He was launching himself at tackles where he was just hitting thin air all over the pitch until he
been there.
Injured. Yeah, look, I get it, but no one's paying us to play for Harlequins yet.
No, not yet.
Guido Petty and Cunningham on the bench. Gloucester are have been weak at the breakdown this season. Why would you not pick Cunningham? Why would you not have your dual Jacqueline threats? Because when we played Quins at Twickenham towards the end of last season,
they destroyed you.
Cunningham and Evans absolutely battered us at the breakdown. And we had a player on Prem debut at 6 in Dayon Gwyn, who I thought was very good, but best one in the world. I think Cunningham could have bullied him if he wanted.
Yeah.
So for me, real questions have to be asked, and I know are being asked by Quins fans of the coaching staff, because that selection doesn't seem to make sense. I don't know what they're trying to achieve.
Well, I think it goes beyond selection as well. I think it's game plan. I think when I was doing the stats, I think scrum half, whose name has escaped me all of a sudden. Oh, it is Will Porter, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Will Porter, yeah.
For some reason I thought it was someone else. Will Porter, he only passed the ball, I think it was like 30 times. That tells you how often they're kicking. And they seem to be so hell-bent on this idea that Rodrigo Isgro is this absolute phenom in the air, that he recovers everything. He lost possession of that ball more than he gained it. He knocked it on most of the time.
Yeah.
So I get the game plan. In some games that may work, and Isgro is a good player in the air. But if it's not working, it's what we spoke about in England last year. It's that not having that plan B, and they seem to stick with that.
Yeah, they're not pivoting. Yeah,
they're not changing the game plan, and I think maybe they're too much stuck to a playbook. Maybe that's part of the problem as well. So we've got players being picked in odd positions with odd selections, and a playbook that is maybe being absolutely drilled into them that they can't move away from. Which means when things aren't working, the players don't know how to act naturally because they're playing in a weird selection, and there isn't flexibility in the game plan to do something different if it's not working. I think, obviously, I'm not a DOR. I'm not a coach. I've said many times, we are just amateur people from watching off from a sofa.
Yeah.
But if I was to put my finger on something, I think those are the things that are going wrong for Harlequins.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Someone's put the league's great entertainers in a box, and they're not fulfilling what is obviously the potential of this squad. Rodrigo Isco, he's probably in Ollie Thorley, and I realise Ollie Thorley's is every chance that he breaks before he finishes any game he plays. But in Ollie Thorley, you've got one of the wingers who can absolutely match Isgro's physicality and speed.
For sure.
And probably aerial ability, because he's just got that jumping power.
Yeah. Thorley had a great game, I'd say, as well.
He's phenomenal. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. Just shows what he brings when you can get him on the pitch.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a surprise that Isgro went off after 55 minutes for Nick David, who didn't really exactly get a chance to turn the tide, because Ollie Thorley then ran over him for his try.
But ultimately with Quins, I think they just rely on a bit of magic from Marcus Smith, and when it doesn't work, and like the Gloucester centres, Atkinson and Joseph, he didn't have the space. I wonder if that's why they choose Jared Evans at 12 to try and buy him a bit of space so Smith can slot into the fullback position. But it just doesn't work.
They're still trying to solve for the fact they lost Esterhazen. And I understand that is a big hole to fill in any backline. I totally understand why it's not easy to do. I just can't see the logic where Jared Evans is the answer there. When you've got someone like Northmore, who's he's not as big as SA, who's still 6 foot.
He's the closest they're going to get in the squad they've got, unless they want to start playing Cunningham South at 12. Which, if you're going to play him at 6, you might as well play him at 12.
Well, they have got to find a way to give Marcus Smith the space and opportunity, because you saw when Marcus Smith got that little bit of time and space, he made a line break that nearly made the pitch.
They rely on moments of brilliance from him, and that's as much as I can. Oh, I've got another doorbell. I've got a doorbell. I wonder what's.
Oh, is it his dog food or his pasta? I know he was giving out about me getting a doorbell early on. I mean, I do apologise. It's so unprofessional from us that we're constantly getting people arriving at the doors. I'm guessing on this occasion it's going to be his foie gras, Stilton and port just in time for the festive season.
Sadly, not very exciting, just an Amazon delivery.
Yeah, that's...
'Tis the season.
Door-to-door foie gras that the upper echelons of the civil service are used to.
It's just, I have to order in a specific sort of wipe for my projector lens. It has to come from a certain specific type of tree based that can only be found in the Highlands of Scotland, so I have to get it specially shipped in because the silk wipes are they spend 6 months soaking up this specific oil from the tree. So I just have to ship those in, special delivery, helicopter.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's what's happening there.
Well, he sits there eating his tins of caviar whilst he's watching rugby.
Yeah, well, it's a hard life. Where was I? But yes, so Quins, they rely on Marcus Smith too much. That's the crux of it. And when it doesn't work, they don't work. Okay. Any more you want to cover on this game specifically, Rory?
No, look, I mean, what I will say from a Gloucester perspective, the green shoots are there from our perspective. You can see that there's a few players. The fact that we had Val Rapava Ruskin and Afaf Asolpin as our props on the bench, hugely positive for us. The fact that we can bring on Cockgreave and Atkinson. If we get Jack Clement, Jack Mann, Ben Loader, Yesias Edwards-Giroux back sort of in contention over the next couple of weeks. Max Llewellyn, obviously.
Arthur Clark,
yeah. If he stops breaking his feet every time he walks. There's some reason to be positive.
It does feel like Gloucester are coming out of that really bad patch with injuries, and again, maybe it's because you've had a bit more time. So those newer signings, where that initial throwing them in at the deep end, that's no longer the case because they've been with the squad a bit longer. So hopefully we'll start to see the potential that we can see in that Gloucester squad. And I think it's no surprise that you get your first victory the first time you can play Atkinson and Joseph together. I'm not surprised at that at all. That game ends 26-15 to Gloucester. Should we skip the next game?
I think we should probably touch on it, David. There's a couple of things to talk about. Listeners, if you haven't seen, the Bristol Northampton game was game of the weekend for me. I really enjoyed this one, even for the fact of such a strong Bristol performance. This was
great performance from Bristol. Yeah, really good performance from Bristol. Let's focus on them.
Well, I think let's focus on some big things. I mean, once again, just the fact they can deal with such adversity, losing 2 of their back 3 players in the first half an hour, and still come away with.
It must be really tricky to bring Lewis Rees-Zammit off the bench. Real hardship for them.
Yeah, and a Welsh under 20s player as well. To be fair, having lost Tom Jordan and Bates pretty early on.
The household name Jack Bates,
yeah.
Like for likes, that's what I'm hearing.
Well, I think if we're being honest, David, I think some finger pointing might need to be done.
What I would say is Northampton didn't get the memo, all right? We thought it was another Prem Rugby Cup game, all right? You just look at that squad and you would not be surprised if that's what they were thinking, because that back line was a who's who of 5th and 6th string Northampton Saints players.
Can you just confirm how much this actually reflects the current injury list? Because I know that Tommy Freeman's injured, and I know Ollie Slightholme has had a bit of a setback on his recovery.
Yeah. So
is Alex Mitchell injured?
No. So what's happened here is Northampton. are duty bound to rest a number of the England players who played over the autumn issues in one game over the next 3 fixtures. They've obviously made the decision to target the 2 Champions Cup games that are coming up. So they decided that they'll rest Alex Mitchell, they'll rest Fraser Dingwall, they'll rest Alex Coles, they'll rest Henry Pollock, and anyone else who I've forgotten, for this game to be able to focus on the Champions Cup game. However, we also have injuries to James Ram, George Hendy, Slightholm, as you said, Anthony Bello, he's injured. Who else? I can't think of who else. And then Hutchinson's away with Scotland. Finn Smith, because he only played 20-odd minutes, 80-odd minutes for England over the 4 weeks, we could play him, so I don't think he has to rest. And yeah, I think a mixture of injuries and us choosing this game to be the one where we rest our England cohort just meant it was a bit of a Prem Rugby Cup lineup. So like Toby Tame, I think it was his first start. Kokasau, first start. Furbank, great to see him back, but obviously it's his first Prem game in God knows how long.
He was genuinely brilliant, actually.
Yeah.
He was probably the sole shining light.
The sole shining. Eduardo Tadaro, well, I'm sure we'll touch about that, but he got about 20 seconds of game.
Yeah.
James Pater coming off the bench. He's a senior academy lad who's literally like only just turned 18. Tom Litchfield getting moved to play out of position to accommodate that, so make Rory Hutchinson in. Archie McParland continuing what I don't want to draw attention to, but feels like the Ruxmalls and Overballs curse on him.
Yeah.
By having
sticky patch of form.
Perhaps not his best game in what is a sticky patch of form. And Finn Smith just unable to unlock anything with that backline because Bristol were excellent in defence and really suffocated him. And then the pack just were... It was an odd selection. So I think they made a mistake by selecting Ed Prowse and Van der Mescht in the locks.
Well, this was the one I really did want to ask you about, because with the best one in the world, not the most dynamic lock pairing.
No.
So obviously, Alex Coles would be expected in there.
Yes. I think we went in with the idea that we'd be able to arm wrestle our way through this game by selecting a really big pack. I think we were immediately put on the back foot by the Tadara red card, so then our pack had to work extra hard to try and cover for that. It didn't work. Well,
can I just make the accusation? The pack didn't really work hard at all throughout this game.
No,
as evidenced very early on by that Marmion try off the tap pen.
Yeah, the fact that there wasn't a single Saints player making any effort to get back. It was glaringly obvious that the Saints players were not... Either they weren't fit enough or they weren't up for this game enough, because it was really disappointing. Really disappointing to watch as a Saints fan. And the Saints fan base was really quite angry about this performance, because it did look like they didn't really want to be there at times.
No, they looked really, really out of sorts in this one. Can I say, having picked such a big pack, the Saints scrum was very average.
I would say that the refereeing at scrum time was, at time, questionable. How Trevor Davison could be pinged for pulling a scrum down when his elbow's the one pointing up, and who was I think it was Laheath at the time, was the one whose head hit the floor and shoulders down, and yet Trevor Davison gets pinged for that. And we get pinged for Bristol
Was he
Bears.
not pinged for backing off, though?
No, the ref was very clear it was for pulling down with his elbow.
Okay.
So it was just an incorrect call. We just seem to get on the wrong side of the ref. I don't want to point the finger at a ref, but I do feel there's a bit of a track record with Ian Tempest. He doesn't seem to like Northampton Saints a lot.
What I would say is Ian Tempest could not stop getting in the way of balls.
He couldn't. I'd also say, if you were to watch that game back and look at his body language and tone of voice when talking to Bristol Bears players, to how he was talking to Northampton Saints players, and I'm not saying this just through I genuinely picked this up. He looked like he was so annoyed and sounded annoyed every time Northampton would talk to him, but yet he would stand and chat with Harry Thacker for 30 seconds, happily, lovely tone. Yeah, I'll look out for that. It was really quite irksome, I'll say, Rory, because...
Well, maybe you should reflect on the fact that a referee doesn't like your club and say, well, maybe it's the attitude of the club.
Well, I would argue the referee should be absolutely in no way blinkered in any way, whether he likes us or not.
They're human beings, David. They're human beings.
Well, it's...
And Northampton are inherently unlikable, so, you're going to have to cope with that at some point.
Okay, Rory. But yeah, like I said, I'm not going to blame the ref because Northampton were poor, really, really poor.
Well, yeah, let's
And
be
Bristol
frank.
were really good.
Bristol were excellent, particularly James Williams and Bernard Janssen van Rensburg, who between them were phenomenal.
You said the name, so I have to ask you. Thoughts on, it's not necessarily news, but like the speculation that Janssen van Rensburg is now going to be eligible for England because he's now signed that new contract and World Rugby have apparently greenlit it. Would you want to see him in an England shirt in that already stacked England centre depth chart?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because the rumours are that the RFU have been really lobbying for this, specifically with this selection in mind. Don't know how true that is, but that's the reporting.
Yeah,
that this is very much led by the RFU.
This question is purely led from speculation in the media. It's not been said by, as far as I'm aware.
No one
not said anything. Bristol's not said anything. The RFU actually haven't said anything publicly, so it's just speculation.
But if they then make this selection, does it confirm that, or would they just be taking advantage of it? Who knows? It would certainly lead to more speculation. Look, he is without doubt a phenomenal centre who has been one of the best centres in the league for quite some time. It would be very difficult to argue with selecting him in the England squad. There is, I can't deny it, there is a part of me that would be quite uncomfortable with it as a selection, purely on the basis of, if it comes from specific lobbying to change a specific rule to allow that selection, that's gaming a system through the power of the RFU. And I that doesn't sit well for, given the power, given the might, the financial might of the RFU, and also, let's be honest, the playing base they've got to work with. They should not be in a position where they're specifically lobbying to get specific players in that have come through from other nations' systems. You know, the Hoskins to Tutu question is slightly different. He is qualified for England, but he does have an All Blacks cap. Again, doesn't quite sit right with me.
Yeah.
What I don't like the most powerful bodies trying to game the system quite so cynically. So it's no judgment on Bernard Janssen van Rensburg, who is certainly good enough to play international rugby for England or anyone else.
For sure.
And I wouldn't begrudge him being selected, and I have no doubt he would be a brilliant selection. I don't know necessarily that it's, given what we discussed about England's current centre depth, which has appeared out of nowhere, whether it's necessarily an absolutely vital selection right now.
Yeah.
But he certainly would be in the conversation. What I don't like is that the RFU have seemingly gerrymandered this system to get it, when it's so disproportionately advantages powerful nations over the more financially poor nations. So that's why it would sit badly with me.
Yeah, I get that. But on the flip side, if I saw him in an England shirt, I'd enjoy watching him. But I do get it. Like, would I want to see him selected in the squad over Fraser Dingwall or Seb Atkinson or Oscar Beard? Like, I think that's a bit of a sour taste for players that have come through the system and then they're dropped. But we'll see. We'll see how, because we are working on speculation. Should we touch on? No, but you were talking about James Williams and Van Rensburg's excellence in the midfield. Yeah, they were fantastic.
James Williams, all court game. I mean, had a couple of absolute hurlers of kicks. Got one 50-22, one lovely little nudge down the right wing. It was just an all-round fantastic performance from a player that's, you know,
I think he's one of the players.
He's come the unfashionable route. To this level. But he's just proof, if proof be need be, that there is real quality in the English pyramid if you take the time to nurture it and gamble on it. Which, you know, we hope we'll see more of if the champ continues to strengthen. Players of his quality, you know, would be a rare find in any other system below the top league, barring the French system, probably. So really, really good to see him back out there. Kieran Marmion is just having a stormer of a season in the absence of Harry Randall. Worsley at 10 is defying all expectations, I think, in terms of what he's
really growing
into this, you know, really, really doing well. And then when you've got the likes of Fitzhardin, Rubiolo, Harry Thacker, Joe Batley, Just good quality league players in the pack with the quality of the likes of Bill Matter and Grondona to come on top of that, and then young talent like Ivanashvili, who at one point I think murdered Finn Smith.
He's not the only one.
Then not the only one. He properly went for him, and lovely to see.
Yeah, I think Finn Smith got absolutely leathered about 4 or 5 times in that game.
He did. Yeah, he had a real tough time of it. Not helped by a pack that was not giving him the backup that he needed to lay off the ball.
Yeah, no protection. But yeah, no, I cannot disagree with any of that assessment. They were, Bristol to a man, were the better side. And yeah, James Williams and Marmion, I thought, were particularly very impressive. Probably touch on Eduardo Todaro. We've been singing his praises for some time now this season.
It's naivety. It's not malicious.
Oh, no.
It's just the naive challenge of a young player. And really part of something that I actually want to ask you about, because obviously the much vaunted Saints academy system that obviously performed so well in the academy leagues and has been producing some brilliant players for certainly in recent years, but for a long time really, and has a lot of exciting players coming through. Having Todaro, Tame, Thangusau, McParland all in that backline, obviously part of it injury enforced, but have Saints relied too heavily on the quality of their youngsters too much? Are they trying to leverage that academy too much too early, and to the detriment of their development, but certainly to the detriment of results like this, where they were out-muscled, out-thought, and made some fairly fundamental errors?
Yeah, I think it's a conscious decision squad-wise to have quite a heavy academy-based, because you get academy credits. Yeah. It's financially makes sense as a club, and maybe it's one of the reasons why we are one of the clubs that is more financially stable than others, because it's a conscious decision to have quite a heavy academy presence. I think this fixture specifically, in normal times with normal injuries, we wouldn't have seen that sort of selection. So a lot of it is kind of forced upon us. Because normally, I think, because Tom James has had quite a long injury layoff, normally he would be the starter in that at 9, for instance. Normally would have George Hendy or James Ram on the wing. Tom Litchfield able to operate in centre. If injuries pending, it probably would have been Bello at 12. So I think just in this specific set of circumstances, it was just the injuries were in the wrong places for this game, so we've had to lean on the younger players more than we probably would like. But there was a lot of talk.
Squad, as a whole squad, is it? I appreciate the academy credits point that that is a good reason to focus on it. But have you skewed it too far in that direction for situations like this?
I would argue one result doesn't make that all of a sudden a bad decision to make. I think there's a number of things here that are slightly out of the ordinary that have happened.
But I appreciate this is the end of an unbeaten run, and you were top of the table coming into this. So, and I appreciate that, but I think it would be fair to say it's not been a plain sailing unbeaten run. Obviously, there was a draw against Exeter, there was a half against Gloucester, where it sort of nearly fell apart. I mean, obviously, and some some really strong results as well, but I just wonder if there's a couple of shaky signs there.
Potentially, we might. So this game probably is emblematic of the problems with that approach. But I also think you look at the more successful clubs in the league at the moment, they all seem to be leaning towards copying that approach as well. Saracens are clearly leaning towards that. Bath are starting to do that, certainly in the pack, less so in the backs, but their pack-wise is moving that way as well. Yeah. So I think most clubs are starting to realise that if they can really start to back their academy players. Yeah, for this one, there's probably a few players that maybe they weren't ready. Toby Tame, I bigged up at the start of the season that this will be his breakout year. It was a tough game for him. But, he was up against 2 very, very good centres in very good form. And it was a tricky start being down one in kind of the back line, and then in the first 20 minutes we were 3-4 tries down. It was an uphill battle anyway for anyone. Hokusau, he's not even an academy product. He's just one we've picked up this summer, but he's basically a project player. We picked
he's
up from
Glasgow, is it?
Yeah. So he's a project player. I don't think ordinarily we'd been envisaging him starting in the Prem this soon anyway. Todaro, I'm really happy he has emerged as a player, but it's very rarely a player in their first year after signing as a senior academy player that they're starting every game. So we're quite lucky how that's worked out, especially with the injuries we've had. Because I think, again, in normal times, he wouldn't have started all the games he has done. I think it's just, again, Northampton Saints, small violin time, suffering with injuries. But I don't want Northampton to change the way they do it, because I like that they back the academy. I like that they are trying to expose these young players to these experiences. It does mean every now and then we're going to get a shellacking. But I'm hopeful, because it's that quirky time of the year where we have to rest England players, and there's other players that we try and rest. So we could have started Hutchinson, but we wanted to rest him. We could have started Fischetti, but we wanted to give him rest. Like, we didn't have to rest these players. I think there was a conscious decision to kind of give these international players that bit of extra time, and we just suffered for it this week. I think that's it. So I'm not going to say it's too much of a fundamental issue at Northampton at this point in time. We'll see how the season goes.
No, fair enough. But a question I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, fair. And obviously, when it comes to Saints, I have the answers. But yeah, I think it was 46-12 to Bristol, just a shellacking, as I said.
You don't think you know.
Yeah. So, yeah, less said about that, the better. Next game. Really good game, this one, I thought. Saracens versus the Bath. Thoughts, Rory? Tale of two halves, I thought, kind of.
Well, to an extent, I mean, it was tighter at half-time than it probably deserved to be. I thought Saracens were... It
was a tale of 1 quarter versus 3 quarters when Tom Willis left, because I still maintain my theory that Saracens struggled to win without Tom Willis.
They certainly struggled to keep getting the go forward they were getting beforehand, which is fair enough, because that's something Tom Willis is bloody brilliant at. Yeah, an interesting one. I mean, I would say, broadly speaking, in the first half as a whole, Saracens were by some distance the better team, actually. Arundel, obviously, with another 80-metre finish off an intercept from a very daft, I think it was Van Zyl, through the pass.
Yeah.
An unusually loose mistake from him. And then Tom Satoy scoring off the back of a maul that went on for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Sarries counted it really well, and then it stops, and then Bath have given all the time in the world to...
I can't help but think there must be some sort of jiggery-pokery going on inside that maul. Because I tried to track where the ball was, and I don't understand how Dutoy ended up with it, because he didn't have the ball from the start of that maul. He was at the front of it. I'm like, how's that happened? But, a TMO's not going to sit there and pick through whether the ball's transferred through the maul legally with a fine-tooth comb.
Not for Bath.
Not for Bath, no. Oh, God, we're going to go down that route again. We're going to be the anti-Bath pod. We're not going there anytime soon again, so we can start digging into them again.
Well, can I just make the slight point of what would it have taken Christopher Ridley to call a not straight line out for Bath? Because he's very willing to call it for Saracens, but he didn't mention it once for Bath on some very ropey calls. That being said, Theo Dan's line-out darts are close to being a liability. Sarries, again.
Thankfully, he was really good around the park, so he made up for
so good around the park, carried real big.
Yeah.
So that makes up for a lot of it. But a couple of times, you get some very un-Sarries moments where they cough up in the red zone because they don't execute a line up, and it's not typical of what you think of when it comes to Saracens. But yeah, I mean, Theo Dan did a lot of good carrying, and then Tom Willis was going really well up until the injury.
Statistically, he was on for a worldie. In his 20 minutes, he'd broken 6 tackles, beat 6 defenders, carried 30 meters. Had made 8 tackles, or he was on for some monster numbers, and then unfortunately he somehow landed on his back, and it looks like he'd just done his back in something like that. Oh, it was so annoying when he went off.
I wasn't quite sure what it was, but
obviously he's my captain in all my fantasy rugby, and that basically ruined me this week.
I didn't have a great week because I forgot to save my changes to my starting lineup.
I didn't have a great week because I made the decision to swap Arundel out for Kalori. Because, well, quite rightly, Saracens definitely had a game plan in place to target Arundel in the air, but I did not anticipate Arundel having answers to it, if I'm honest, and he did.
No, I mean, not completely having answers to it. I mean, Kalori gave him some real trouble there and got some good change out of it, but No, I thought Arundel stood up really well to that challenge, and actually having those two go up against each other was a really good kind of yardstick for where they are and potential future options as a pairing. But on top of everything else, obviously you cannot deny Arundel's pace.
No, yeah, that breakaway try, like all the Kalori was trying to keep up. It was like he just gave up very quickly. He's like, I haven't got the pace for him. Is he the quickest man in the league?
Can't think of anyone obviously who's quicker. I mean, maybe Reece Zammit at full tilt. I would like to see a race end to end of the pitch between those two.
Again, we're gonna call out for a Prem Rugby combine. I'd love to see a 40-yard dash times.
Yeah,
imagine it.
I mean, I think Arundel may be quicker off the mark, maybe Reece Zammit over a longer distance, but
Radwan,
there's not much. Radwan off the mark, yeah, but I don't think at full tilt.
No, it'd be an interesting one. But yeah. So a point I wanted to make around Kalori, and I'm completely on the Kalori hype train. But is he already in danger of being almost played into being a one-trick pony? Because he seems to be selected for one thing and one thing only, and he's very, very good at it.
Yeah.
I'm just worried that will all of his other skills, which I know he has from watching him through under-20s and stuff, he just seems to only be utilised for that one really great skill he's got. Teams will be able to figure that out, and teams will be able to adapt to that. I'm worried that he might get a bit of that Leslie Vainicolo treatment, that he storms the league, teams figure him out, and then you become nullified because you've just been kind of rolled out for this very specific role. I don't want Saracens or England or anyone just to look at him as solely as just only a high ball threat, which seems to be the only way he's getting used at the moment.
No, well, I think there's a couple of challenges there, right? I mean, one challenge is, can Sarries create a game plan that's got enough in it to get use out of him, anything other than just his high ball game, right? And to be fair, Bath is maybe not the opponent where you start swinging it to the width too often. Because they tried that once and Arundel nicked it and ran, the length of the pitch.
Yeah, but arguably, in halfway through the 22 is not the place to be doing that. So surely that wasn't the Saracens' game plan. That was just Van Zyl making a bad call. Surely.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But there's definitely a question as to whether how and when you use him. And Saracens need to find a way to utilize him in all facets of his ability rather than just the fact that he can jump really well. But then the other challenge, of course, is he's got to find a way of getting himself in the game, the likes of the ways of Faye Waboso does, Tommy Freeman does.
That's the challenge.
Because ultimately, if you stay in that comfort zone as a player of what you're known to be very good at, that is what you'll be fed to, and and he will continue to look brilliant there. But there's the challenge has got to be to him to bring more to the game as well as Sarries to offer more to him. But I still think he's got the talent to bring more than just a high ball game to the pitch.
So I say this because I know he does.
Definitely a call there.
Yeah. I say this because I know he does, because I've seen what he's done under 20s. And I'm just worried that I just don't want him to become one of these players where he just gets asked to do a very specific role and you kind of lose all the other parts of his game that were also really good. And it's just yes,
no, absolutely. But you also the other element is he's 3-4 games into his senior career.
Oh, exactly. It's completely unfair of me to point any criticism, which I'm trying to not do because I don't think it's a criticism of him at all. I just don't want clubs or coaches to just typecast him as a specific type of player.
Ultimately, I would like to think he'll figure it out. And realistically, he was up against one of the best wingers in the league.
Certainly the most informed winger in the league for sure.
Yeah, we've got to call it as we say it. I think at this point, he is absolutely bringing in everything he was vaunted to bring at the start of the season. At this point, even if there was a couple of shaky moments early on that we called out, I think we've got to hold our hands up and say, no, Arundel genuinely is just that good. Actually,
he looks like maybe it's the Bath environment. He looks like a different player to what he was at Racing. From clips I watch him there, he looks confident again, which for the rest of the league will be scary because Arundel in full flight, close to unstoppable, certainly in open play. So that's a concern because then we just move on to Bath Pack yet again.
Again, really impressed with Arthur Green.
Yeah, another really good one.
Who is a player I'm increasingly excited by. I always forget how quick Josh Bayliss is. He's like the fact that they've got him and Ted Hill as 6 options, who have both got the pace of
Bath definitely have the quickest
guys.
back row in the league for sure.
It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
He's such a get out of jail free card to be able to pass to a back rower who's quicker than everyone else's winger.
Yeah.
Obviously, we spoke about them all. It's just hard. It's almost unstoppable. And then on top of that, they throw everyone off with a trick 5-metre tap penalty play to put Will Button in the corner, which I know Sarah's been very disappointed about not finishing. But Bath have been setting everyone up with Tom Dunn non-taps and goes for the last 2 seasons, and then they just switched it up just to fuck with Saracens in this game.
Yeah.
Which I quite enjoy as a bit of trolling. But that pack is just it's so hard to envisage how any other team competes with it. Miles Reed was phenomenal once again, as he often is, always is. In fact, just great at the breakdown.
Yeah, five turnovers. You very rarely get that number in a single game.
And what you have to also appreciate is that's 5 turnovers against Bernal and Gonzalez, who are 2 of the best back rowers in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly in Gonzalez's case, Gonzalez is for being the best back rower in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bernal came off the back of 4 superb performances for England. He's not playing against mugs, and he's still every week just churns out those 7, 8, 9, 10, 9 out of 10 performances. And then just the rest of the pack is just completely indomitable. I mean, it's really hard to see past Bath at this point. I know they haven't won every game, but you just can't really envisage them.
Well, as we said,
winning the league.
As we said before, they feel inevitable. They feel it's going to take something superhuman on a one-off occasion to beat them, and maybe that's what Leicester harnessed at Matiola Woods Welford Road. It's hard to see another team. I thought Saracens. So in the first 20 minutes, I thought Saracens really showed up really well, and I thought Saracens were onto something. But the second Bath get a little bit of momentum back, get a bit of control back, that they are just unstoppable. There isn't. Really
I think the question, the only question for me now is how far can they go in Europe, which we obviously start to see from this weekend.
Yeah.
Because actually, I think if Bath can have a good tilt at Europe, if Saints continue their European form, Saracens you'd expect to have a good crack at Europe. Maybe Tigers can do something as well. Even Sale, maybe if they can turn around this patchy form they've got at the moment with the abrasiveness of that pack.
I think
does the Prem start to show up in Europe again really strongly?
Do you think Prem Rugby could get 4 of the 8 quarterfinalists?
I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility. I don't think it's likely, but I certainly think they could get 3. I could see Bath. Well, I mean, be amazed if Bath don't. I think it would take a real
surprise.
Well, a couple of real upsets. Acknowledging that they're going to have to play some good players. I mean, they're playing Munster and Toulon this side of Christmas. Those are not easy fixtures. But I would still suggest that Bath should expect to get through. Saints, assuming they can get some bodies back on the pitch off the back of last season, no for playing anyone, and I think should make it through. And then beyond that, the Bristol Tigers and Sale, those 3 in particular, I think are all capable of stringing together some good results in Europe and getting through. Probably not in the top seeds.
Yeah.
But I could certainly see those 3 being in the mix. And I would think 1, if not 2, can get through. I don't expect to see Gloucester do much, if I'm honest. And my gut feel is we won't necessarily.
Gloucester are playing for one of those positions where you get dropped into the Challenge Cup. That's what you're playing for.
Probably. I mean, we've got Cast at home this weekend, which is winnable.
Yeah.
Cast aren't pulling up trees in France, but it's certainly winnable.
Yeah.
And then Munster away the week after, which I'm going to and very much looking forward to. It's safe in the knowledge that I don't think we'll be pulling off any great shocks there. And then Edinburgh away, which is definitely winnable.
Yeah.
We've won away at Edinburgh in the Challenge Cup in
recent time, yeah.
Either last season or season before. And then Toulon at home, who knows? I don't know enough about Toulon's form at the moment to give you a good answer on that one. So, look, I don't think Gloucester are going to get through, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Gloucester are going to get through to the next round. It's not beyond the realms of entire possibility, but I'm not expecting it. But I would expect Bath, Saints, and one or two of those other three to make it.
Well, that fun European journey starts this weekend. We'll see how we can cover that when we come to next week's pod. But yeah, so the Sarries Bath game, Bath just as we said, indomitable, inevitable, and they won again, 36-29. Bonus point, another 5 points, back to the top of the table where they're probably going to remain now for the rest of the season, I imagine. Now, before we kind of move towards closing the podcast, Rory, because I know we're getting towards to the tail end of this podcast. I'll put my hands up. I didn't watch the Wales versus South Africa because I knew it was going to be a cricket score. It was a cricket score.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't either. I wasn't really interested.
But I would love your 60-second take on the talking point, Eben Etzebeth.
Well, I mean, if they've got anything about him, they'll throw the book at him for that. I know that some footage has arisen that he may have been provoked with an eye gouge of his own. But then throw the book at both of them. I don't care. But it's the lack of subtlety in it is insane. It's an insane thing to have done for a player of that experience. Again, in a situation where they're winning so comfortably, he knows what's happened there. One of the Welsh players has lost their head because they're getting tonked and has done something stupid. What he should have done is called it out to the ref and asked the TMO to have a look, or in the knowledge that they'll review it after the game. But I'm assuming
you're referring to the still photo that shows no conclusive evidence of a finger in an eye. It's just someone's arm near someone's face, versus the very clear video footage of Eben Etzebeth staring into the person's eye that his thumb is pushing directly into, with a very angry look on his face. There are two very different sets of evidence, and the amount of times I've seen South Africans fans peddling this picture of Alex Mann with his arm close to Eben Etzebeth's face, saying, "Oh, that's because his finger's in his eye," is absolutely ludicrous. South African fans should just look at themselves, and the fact that even some players like Brian Habana's come out and said that a lengthy ban should be going. This should retire Etzebeth, because it does not belong in this game. Eye gouging is the worst possible thing you can do on the pitch, and I want them to throw the book at him. I would be happy if they threw a year at him, 2 years, just retire him, because that's what he deserves. And if his legacy's ruined because of it, so be it. You shouldn't do anything as stupid as that.
Yeah,
and
my gut feel is they won't do that.
They probably won't. You'll probably get 12 weeks.
Yeah, 12, 16 weeks, something like that, with a reduction in ban for good disciplinary record or whatever. Or good conduct at the hearing, usually the sort of thing they do in these sort of school teacher environments. They do it.
But we all saw that video.
It's mental.
We all saw that video. We saw his face. He was looking directly at Alex Mann's face whilst he was pushing his thumb directly into his eye. I can't unsee it. That's all I remember him for now. Sorry, Eben, but legacy ruined in my eyes. I know that won't mean anything to you. It won't mean anything to South African fans, but let's face it, it's dirty. It's the same way that I look at Callum Clark now. Like, I used to love Callum Clark, then he went and deliberately broke John Hawkins' arm. Dirty players are dirty players, and they don't belong on the pitch.
Certainly players who are dirty in that fashion.
Yeah. Anyone who does something deliberately with malice, which I think it was.
To a fellow pro?
Yeah.
You got time for it.
I'm not here for it. So, yeah, I hope they throw the book at him. They probably won't. And do South Africa need to think about how many red cards they're picking up, because it's pretty ludicrous now.
Yeah, I mean, did they have a red card? I think they had a red card in every game, didn't they?
Every single game.
I know they'll claim persecution, and there are a couple. We obviously spoke about at least the Mostert example, where we thought that was unfair. But at some point, you've got to take a long hard look at yourselves.
Yeah, like it doesn't. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we'll see if the trend continues next year, where South Africa come back. Maybe they'll go away and start being good boys. We'll see. And do you want to finish off with a roundup of the PWR, Rory, before we close?
Yeah, I think a quick roundup is worth doing. Because some interesting results. Gloucester Hartbury continuing their march, still unbeaten at the top of the table, with a very handsome victory over a strong Bristol Bears team. I think Gloucester Hartbury are just marching their way to another title at this point, because the fact they've dispatched the likes of Saracens and Bristol with pretty consummate ease suggests that they are going to be a cut above everyone else again.
Yeah, that change of coach really hasn't slowed down the momentum, has it?
No, and I was watching a couple of interviews with him. He speaks really well. I think you can see why they took him on. It's obviously part of the setup beforehand.
Yeah.
You can just see that there's a really good feeling in that camp. But kind of interesting. I mean, Sale getting a draw against Exeter. It's not been an easy start to the season for Sale. Holly Aitchison obviously making her way up there and not necessarily having the immediate impact, but maybe turn the tide a little bit with Exeter. Exeter are one of the strongest sides in the league. So getting the draw there is something to hang their hats on. The old Loughborough Lightning getting a good win against Leicester women. I think are probably in for a pretty tough season at this point, but I'm sure they'll turn it around at some point.
Yeah.
And Saracens absolutely dominating the Trailfinders at Trailfinders, 57-5. So maybe some signs that the Saracens team is clicking after that early loss to Gloucester Hartbury.
I hope they do, because I want them to be real competition for Gloucester Hartbury, because I think that league needs a rivalry at the top, and like it not to be so kind of like how Ealing Trailfinders have been in the champ in recent years, where it's just like running away with it. It'll be good if Saracens can really provide competition.
I think Saracens will come good because the quality of players they've got there.
They have got the players. Yeah.
They've got the players. They just need the time. But I expect Quins to form to pick up eventually as well. They've had a poor start to the season, but there's too much quality in that team to stay down for long.
Yeah,
same with Bristol. So I suspect it'll be tighter at the top than it looks at the moment. But as of today, Gloucester Hartbury are marching towards another title. So we'll see how things go from here. Yeah,
and I suppose while we're on the PWR, it's a good time. It's a hats off to the career of Abby Dow.
Yes, leaving the sport to head back into engineering. A real shame. Peak of her powers at 28. I'd love to have seen her go to another World Cup, really. But, I understand that, in the women's game particularly, you have to make some decisions that are different to the top of the men's game. So I understand that. Real shame to see her go. But, a hell of a player. I mean, that's off. I think John Mitchell said he, to his money, had the best right wing in the world, and there's a couple of good players around, but I think he might have had a point, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. She was fantastic. All very, very reliable, very, very dependable, and always delivered on that right wing for England. And I always enjoyed having her in my Women's Six Nations fantasy team because she consistently delivered incredible points. I can't make it all about me, Rory. But no, hats off to Abby Dow. Great career. And hopefully she'll go on to some really great stuff outside of the sport. But no, maybe it's making room for the next gen coming through. I know there's a few exciting young England wingers waiting in the wing to come through. But I think that's it, Rory. I think that's us for this week. Next week we'll tackle the Champions Cup, Challenge Cup. Maybe we've got time. We'll have a think in between this podcast and next podcast how we deliver that to you, because I don't think we'll be able to give you a game by game breakdown of all of the games, but we'll have a think about how we bring our views to you. But I can't wait. I love Champions Cup. Sadly, I'm away this weekend, somewhere where I won't be able to watch games, so I've booked all of Monday off work so I can just sit and absorb it, so I can talk it with Rory in next week's podcast.
Fantastic. Well, look forward to catching up with you on that next week, David.
Yeah, absolutely. But do you have any final thoughts?
A bit of European rugby for us.
Oh, I can't wait. I love European rugby. But I do need your final thought before I bring the podcast to a close.
I say we cut off Etzebeth's thumbs.
And with that, it brings Ruxballs Overballs episode I've lost track to a close. We've been Ruxballs Overballs. If you've enjoyed listening to us, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and do whatever you like with our content. We don't mind. And we'll be back again next week, hopefully, if I don't get too busy at work. Ta-ra!
Ta-da!